Not long ago, Hershey Park announced that Wildcat would be closing permanently. This was the reaction from the general public and the coaster community. This was the reaction from me. Yeah, as you can see here, I love Wildcat. I love its amazing layout, its unexpected pops of airtime, and its really intense turns, and I think it's a shame to see it go. Yeah, sure, it's a little rough, but with a little bit of retracking, it could have definitely become a much better coaster than it is today. And honestly, I don't think that giving it the RMC treatment would be the right idea. However, Hershey Park has hinted at giving it the RMC treatment. So, in this video, I decided to create a potential RMC Wildcat layout and discuss my thought process behind it. It's the first time I've ever given an existing coaster the Iron Horse treatment, and I don't know how well it will be received. So, if you like this coaster, please make sure that you give this video a like and share this video to other people who you think might be interested in seeing this, including maybe even the officials at RMC. Anyway, enjoy. Before I continue with this video, I want to acknowledge that yes, I do not have any footage for creating the pre-lift section. So what happened is that I started recording the video, but as soon as I finished recording the video, my computer crashed and the file became corrupted. So yeah, that video doesn't exist. Thankfully, it is just the making of the pre-lift and the lift hill that didn't get recorded, and the making of the rest of the layout did get recorded, so I will still be making this video, as you can see in front of you. Honestly, with the first drop, there really wasn't much I could do. I knew that it had to closely mirror Wildcat's original first drop, so that's exactly what I did. I knew that according to RMC rules, the next element had to be an inversion, so that's exactly what I did. My original design for the inversion would closely mirror Steel Vengeance's first inversion. However, I did not go through with that, as you will see later in the video. This section of Wildcat closely mirrored the second turn of Mean Streak, so I knew that I had to do something similar, because what Steel Vengeance did after its first inversion was an overbank turn into another inversion. Now what I wanted to do was an outer bank turn, because there was nothing like that on the ride yet. Yeah, I did toy around with the idea of an overbank turn instead of the outer bank airtime hill, but yeah, it just didn't work. It completely killed the pacing, and it was honestly just boring. And then I wanted kind of like the drop off the cliff on Iron Rattler, so I wanted this amazing airtime moment right after this. So the outer bank would actually be a little bit of a restful element. Sure, it would provide airtime, but it would be more on the level of Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom rather than something like Steel Vengeance, because you need to realize that riders need a little bit of breathing room. Now, right after that, I wanted to do probably the best airtime moment on the roller coaster, or rather, not really the best, most likely the strongest on the roller coaster. I just knew, with the shaping and the placement of the next hill on Wildcat, that the next element on RMC Wildcat just had to be a stall. I believe that these stalls are essential to RMC coasters, and was kind of surprised that it wasn't there on Steel Vengeance, I think that the zero gravity stall is the most important signature RMC element that is missing from Steel Vengeance, partly because there wasn't any good place to put it, and I'm kinda happy it wasn't there. However, I know that RMC Wildcat definitely needs this. After making the stall, I decided to add a tiny S-bend to do a little bit of course correction, and also because, it's a classic RMC element, of course it has to be there. And after that, I added a step up which leads you into a giant unbanked airtime hill, the likes of which you see on Steel Vengeance. Originally, I wanted this to be an outer banked airtime hill, but then I realized that, I have a smaller version already a lot earlier into the ride, so I thought the best way forward would be to just have an unbanked airtime hill. Take note of the shaping of this unbanked airtime hill as well. So while the ascension into the top of the unbanked airtime hill is fairly shallow, the descent I've intentionally made sure would be much steeper. Also, I decided to slightly modify this unbanked airtime hill because it was just really wide and drawn out and it didn't really give a lot of airtime. So instead of having one giant airtime moment, I thought it would be far better to have two quick pops of airtime. And the first pop of airtime would be fairly unexpected and you'd be kind of thrown to the side. And then the second pop of airtime, you'd bank outwards and then you'd go into a rather steep drop. So that I thought that would be a fantastic element in its own right, and it would be a great build up to the next element. Since I didn't know what the next element should be, and since I also noticed that the trains were running rather slow right now, I decided that it might not be a bad idea to make the lift hill a lot steeper and a lot taller. This is something that was done to Iron Gwazi, and well, that did wonders for the coaster, especially for the pacing of this coaster, and that's something that I definitely want to replicate here. So I made the lift hill 45 degrees instead of 30 degrees, and that led to a 15-foot increase in height. That did wonders for the pacing of this coaster. However, that also meant I had to deal with the first inversion, and well, I dealt with it in a slightly weird manner. I decided that maybe a double inverted stall might not be a bad idea. Yeah, that didn't really work out very well, and I ultimately just decided to have it be one inversion, and similar to Steel Vengeance's second inversion, you go into the inversion in one direction and then you unexpectedly snap out in the other direction. I thought it was a really cool element on Steel Vengeance, and it would be quite nice to have it on this coaster as well. It took me a long time to get the shaping of this element right, and quite frankly, I still don't think that it is absolutely perfect, and in hindsight, maybe this may not have been the right idea for this coaster. However, I still think it's a pretty cool element, and placing it with something similar to Steel Vengeance's first inversion, well, it just didn't seem right, and I wanted something a little more interesting as the first inversion of the coaster. I once again went back and modified the lift hill, simply because I just didn't think that increasing the lift hill by 15 meters was too realistic. So instead I increased it by 2 meters. Yeah, huge difference. But I also added a pre-drop, and yeah, I always love it when RMCs have that. I mean, I've never been on one which has a pre-drop, but I'm sure it'll be great. Like Outlaw Run, which has a great pre-drop section, and yeah, it just means that the drop will have far more airtime, which is something that would be missing if this was a curved drop. I mean, sure, there would be some airtime, it just wouldn't be that great. More importantly, when I increased the coaster's height by 15 meters, I also realized that the coaster crossed the boundaries of the park, as evident by the trees here. So yeah, that was absolutely unacceptable. So I reverted back to a drop that was similar to the initial curved drop. And yeah, it'll pay respect to Wildcat's first curved drop, which kind of cemented the legacy of GCI's iconic curved drops, which you see on their far more modern and undeniably better coasters like Mystic Timbers and Gold Striker. After increasing the lift hill's height, I realized that now would be a great time to add a death roll on this coaster. So, with Iron Gwazi being famous for how much it increased the lift hill's height, I thought that, hey, maybe take some more inspiration from Iron Gwazi. And that's how I realized that the death roll would be a great element over here. And yeah, this hill is practically begging for a death roll. So I have no clue why I didn't see it sooner, but I'm glad I did see it here, so better late than never, I guess. However, right before the death roll, I also wanted there to be a small airtime moment, so that's exactly what I did. So now what would be happening is that you'd be getting thrown out of your seat, and then you'd be put through one of the most intense inversions in the world. So yeah, if this actually came to be in real life, I'd love to see how it turns out. This would, without question, be the most intense element on the roller coaster yet. After that, I added a small speed hill which led into a long, drawn-out and fairly uneventful turn, something which I would be correcting a lot later in this video. And yeah, initially I just wanted this to be a little bit of a breather for riders because this would lead to, by far, the most intense element on this coaster, a heartline roll. Yeah, I know, RMC really hasn't done anything like this on their coasters, but I'd love to see them try it on Wildcat. Because honestly, this just creates an amazing intense moment, and it would be a really unique and intense moment that would completely catch riders off guard. And yeah, while the airtime moments might be excellent on this coaster, this is what the GP will love the coaster for. Heck, even the Thuzies will appreciate this element. So yeah, I definitely think that RMC might experiment with something like this. So, after the hardline roll, I decided that riders would quickly snap back the other way so that the intense moment doesn't finish, and right after that, they would go on a trick track double down. And yeah, the intensity doesn't end there because now would be the best time to go full on RMC crazy. So, after that, I also added a small speed hill because sure, why not? Of course, the speed hill wouldn't be just any normal speed hill, and obviously it would be banked the wrong way. And yeah, after that, I also thought it would be nice to have a sideways airtime moment, which I experienced on Steel Vengeance. I just loved that airtime moment, and yeah, sure, Planet Coaster disagrees with me, but honestly, I was way past Planet Coaster ratings after this. So I think the sideways airtime moment would be really cool. After that, Wildcat goes into a giant 270-degree helix, and RMC being RMC and Hershey Park being Hershey Park, they'd probably get rid of that final 270-degree helix because it just takes up extra space, and the train would be going really slow if I actually tried to add elements over there. So yeah, I just completely skipped out that helix and immediately went to the next part, which was their first set of breaks. So I created a small curved airtime hill that led into a double up. Depending on the kind of person you are, this may or may not be considered a triple up. I honestly really don't care because it did wonders for the airtime count and honestly the excitement level as well for this coaster. After this double up or triple up again, depending on the kind of person you are, I decided to add a small dip and another small airtime hill, which led into a giant drop. So this would lead to some sustained airtime, and again, it would do wonders for this ride. However, I later modified this as well. This modification led to it becoming a nice double down, which honestly, yeah, it's pretty awesome. Finally, there was a small airtime hill that led into the brake run. And that is the end of RMC Wildcat. After that, I just did a little bit of smoothing here and there just to make sure that the coaster actually felt like an RMC. And yeah, I went on some of the dead spots of the ride, like the giant turn, and yeah, I added a couple of airtime moments there as well because that's what RMC would do. So yeah, I went on different parts of the layout and slightly modified the coaster, but nothing worth talking about, to be honest. Overall, I'm quite pleased with how RMC Wildcat turned out. I didn't really think that this coaster had much potential for an RMC refurbishment, partly because the layout is mostly just turns and unexpected airtime moments. But yeah, I definitely surprised myself by creating a pretty good RMC layout. It definitely would work pretty well for a top tier RMC and could very easily become the best ride in the park. Because Skyrush sucks. I mean, it's a good coaster if you don't mind having your legs amputated. But anyway, I don't want to digress. Honestly, this coaster isn't all that far from what would actually happen if RMC Wildcat would happen. Sure, stuff like the Heartline roll I'm still a little unconvinced about, and yeah, I'm definitely a little unsure about the first inversion as well, but overall, this layout definitely has a little bit of realism to it, and I'm sure that at least three or four elements would be in the exact places where RMC would put them. Overall, I think I've done a good job with this layout and a pretty good job as my first Iron Horse treatment. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think of this Iron Horse treatment of RMC Wildcat in the comments below. This coaster could have a lot of interesting and unique names. Iron Wildcat would be pretty stupid, but it's definitely something I can see Hershey Park going for. Or it could also be something themed to their chocolates. Despite it being outside Chocolate Town, it could be something like Twisted Hershey's Chocolate, or Twisted Jolly Rancher, or hey, Twisted Twizzler. I don't know, go crazy. Anyway, I went with the name Wildcat Unleashed just because I think that name just oozes cool and malice. It oozes danger, and yeah, that's why I think that Wildcat Unleashed might be a pretty good name, although I'm sure that Hershey Park can come up with a far better name than this. I hope the statement ages well. Anyway, before I close out this video with a POV of this coaster, I'd like to acknowledge Theme Park HQ for creating the recreation of Wildcat that I used here. Thank you so much, this recreation really helped me out here, and if it wasn't for this recreation, then my version of RMC Wildcat would probably never exist. So, thank you. Anyway, enjoy the POV.